Have you ever felt the weight of silence so heavy it presses against your chest like a mountain? That kind of silence that creeps in when the world walks away, when the calls stop coming, when the ones you trusted vanish like smoke. It's not just quiet, it's deafening. But buried deep in that silence is something most people never find a voice, your voice. There's a moment in every person's life when they realize no one is coming to save them. No mentor, no friend, no lover, no team. Just you, alone. And that moment is terrifying, but it's also the beginning of everything. That's when the lone wolf is born. We're taught to fear solitude, to think that being alone means something is wrong with us, that if we're not surrounded by people, applause, or attention, we've somehow failed. But what if the opposite is true? What if the world's distractions are keeping you from discovering who you really are? Think about it. How often do you distract yourself from your own thoughts? Scrolling, watching, talking, always running from the silence. But it's in that silence where transformation begins, because when the noise dies down, the truth rises up. The truth about your fears, your potential, your fire. That fire inside you, it's not gone. It's just been buried under layers of doubt and expectation. Every time someone told you to play it safe, every time you swallowed your voice just to be accepted, every time you walked with the pack when your heart was pulling you in another direction. That's how the fire dimmed. But it never died. And when you step into solitude, that fire flickers again. There's power in walking alone. There's clarity. There's strength. When the crowd fades, you start to see things as they really are, not as others want you to see them. You start to question the rules you followed blindly. You begin to rebuild, not from pressure, but from purpose. Yes, the path of the lone wolf is hard. There's no map, no comfort, no certainty. But there is truth. There is freedom. There is the unfiltered, raw reality of who you are and who you can become. It's on this path that you start making decisions not from fear, but from conviction. Not from doubt, but from discipline. And slowly, the pain of isolation transforms into the pride of self-reliance. Most people will never walk this path. They're too afraid of what they might find when they're left with nothing but their thoughts. But those who do, those who dare to face the silence, they discover something unshakable. They find a core that can't be broken by rejection, disappointment, or failure, because it was forged alone, in fire, without applause. This world respects strength, but it worships resilience. And resilience is born in the quiet, lonely moments when you choose not to quit. When you keep going, even when no one's watching. When your motivation isn't external, but internal. That's when you start becoming dangerous, not to others, but to every excuse and limitation that once held you back. So why watch till the end? Because if you've ever felt misunderstood, forgotten, or underestimated, this is your truth. If you've ever been left out, counted out, or pushed out, this is your fire. And if you've ever felt like maybe you were meant for more, but you didn't know how to start, this is your path. This is where the lone wolf rises. Not for revenge, not for approval, but for growth, for power, for purpose. Stay, listen, and remember, the silence that once scared you might be the very thing that sets you free. Pain has a strange way of introducing you to yourself. When everything feels like it's falling apart, when you're sitting alone with nothing but the ache in your chest and the storm in your head, that's when the real battle begins. And that's when the real you starts to emerge. Most people run from pain. They numb it, avoid it, blame others for it. But the lone wolf doesn't run. He stands in it, feels every second of it. Because he knows something they don't pain is a signal, a fire alarm for the soul. It doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to wake you up. That betrayal, that loss, that moment when the people you trusted turned their backs, it wasn't the end. It was the beginning. It was life's brutal way of removing the noise so you could finally hear your own heartbeat. It was the moment the world forced you to stop looking outward and start building inward. You don't grow in comfort. You grow in chaos. You grow in those dark, quiet nights when your thoughts are louder than your strength, when quitting whispers in your ear and the only thing louder is your will. And if you listen closely, there's a voice beneath the pain, a whisper that says, keep going. You're not done yet. You see, the world will teach you to avoid pain at all costs, but greatness comes with a price. The strongest minds are forged in the hottest fire. The greatest warriors are shaped by the deepest wounds. Pain is not the enemy. It's the path. The real ones don't avoid the fire. They walk through it and come out forged. Every setback you faced, it carved something into you. It taught you something no book or mentor ever could. It showed you who wasn't real. It revealed what you truly need. And most of all, it reminded you that you can survive, that you can rebuild, that you are far more powerful than you've been told. You don't need pity. You don't need a crowd clapping for your struggle. You need focus, hunger, fire, because that pain you felt, that's your edge now. That's the chip on your shoulder that will push you when motivation fades. That's the reminder that you've already faced worse, and yet here you are. still breathing, still standing, still capable of more. So when life hurts, don't run, don't fold. Don't numb it with cheap distractions or hollow comfort. Let it shape you. Let it make you sharper, smarter, stronger. Let it turn your pain into precision. Let it teach you to move in silence, to grow in solitude, and to return not as a victim, but as a weapon. There's nothing more dangerous than a person who's been through hell and chose to rise instead of breaking. Someone who knows that rock bottom isn't the end, it's the foundation. That when you have nothing to lose, you gain clarity, power, purpose. You are not broken. You are becoming something the world cannot predict or control. And no one can take that from you, not failure, not loss, not betrayal. Because when your strength comes from pain, when it's earned, not given, it becomes unshakable. The lone wolf doesn't need permission to heal. He doesn't need a round of applause to grow. He uses every scar as a reminder that he's earned his place. Not with noise, not with help, but with grit, with fire, with silence. You're not here to be comfortable. You're here to become powerful. And pain is part of that process. It strips away the lie, the excuses, the weakness. It leaves only what's real. And what's real is this: you are not a victim of your pain. You are the result of how you faced it. So ask yourself this: will you let the pain break you, or will you let it build you? Because the choice isn't out there. It's in you. And once you realize that everything changes, you stop waiting, you stop wishing, you stop asking for the pain to end. And instead, you start using it. You let it push you, fuel you, mold you. And before the world even realizes what happened, the lone wolf is already miles ahead. Quiet, focused, unstoppable. If you felt pain, you're not cursed. You're chosen. The fire didn't come to consume you. It came to prepare you. And when the world sees who you become on the other side of that pain, they won't understand. But you will, because you felt it. You lived it. And you rose anyway. When you stop needing applause, you become dangerous. Because as long as you're chasing approval, you're handing out pieces of your power bit by bit, person by person, until there's nothing left that's truly yours. The world teaches you to crave validation, likes, praise, a pat on the back. But none of those things make you stronger. They make you dependent. There comes a moment when you realize that being accepted by others means nothing if it costs you who you are. That bending yourself just to fit in, just to feel seen, is the slowest way to disappear. The lone wolf doesn't ask for permission. He doesn't wait for someone to tell him he's good enough. He knows. And that knowing is the difference. When you walk away from the need to be liked, you begin to move with a different kind of freedom. You're no longer trapped by their opinions, their expectations, or their doubt. You stop explaining yourself. You stop diluting your truth to make it more digestible. You speak less, but say more. You stop performing. You start becoming. Approval is a drug, and the high is short-lived. It makes you feel full, but it leaves you empty. And the more you rely on it, the less you trust your own judgment. The lone wolf chooses a different addiction progress, not popularity, not praise, but results, discipline, growth, quiet wins that no one sees, but that change everything. When you kill the need to be accepted, you awaken the ability to be respected, not for how loud you are, but for how real you are. Not for how much you talk, but for how well you move. The world starts to feel you not because you're screaming for attention, but because you're building something solid in silence. It's not easy. Walking alone never is. You'll be misunderstood, labeled cold, called arrogant. But the truth is, the world fears what it can't control. And it cannot control a person who no longer needs anything from it. That's what makes the lone wolf powerful. He's unchained. He's not driven by ego or applause. He's driven by something purer. Purpose. Purpose doesn't shout. It doesn't need a stage. It doesn't care about fitting in. Purpose moves like a storm quiet at first, then impossible to ignore. And once you find that inner drive, you stop begging the world to see you. You simply become someone they can't overlook. Approval feels good, but power feels better. Power that comes from doing the hard things, even when no one's watching. From making decisions that align with your vision, even if no one claps. From staying true to your path, even when it gets lonely. That's real power. That's internal. That's unshakable. You weren't built to blend in. That discomfort you feel when you're trying to please everyone, that's your spirit rejecting the cage. That's your higher self demanding more than fake smiles and hollow praise. It's not weakness. It's a signal. You're not meant to chase crowds. You're meant to lead yourself. When you finally let go of needing others to validate your worth, you'll notice something shift. You'll start making moves that actually matter. You'll stop wasting energy on people who don't even know who they are. You'll become efficient, focused, free. Most people are so desperate to be liked that they forget to be real. But not you, not anymore. Because you felt the pain of pretending. You've lived through the weight of carrying an identity that wasn't yours. And now you're ready to let all of it go. to reclaim your name, your voice, your direction. The lone wolf is not bitter, he's clear. He doesn't isolate himself out of hate for others. He does it out of love for his own path. He knows that some journeys are too important to share, some missions too personal to dilute, and some seasons are meant to be walked alone, not as punishment, but as preparation. This isn't about being better than anyone else. It's about being better than who you were. And to do that, you have to disconnect from the noise, from the lies that tell you you're only valuable when you're seen. You're valuable when you're real, when you're whole, when you're willing to stand alone for what matters most. So walk without applause, build without approval, grow without permission, and let the world talk. Let them wonder. Let them misunderstand. Because while they chase attention, you're building strength, and strength speaks for itself. When you choose to walk alone, you don't just find clarity, you find control. No distractions, no noise, just you and the path. And in that space, something incredible happens. You begin to see how much time you've wasted waiting for direction, approval, company. You realize how many steps you didn't take because you thought someone needed to walk beside you. But you were never supposed to wait. You were meant to move forward alone if necessary, because your vision wasn't given to them. It was given to you. Your hunger, your fire, your purpose. It's yours. And no one else will ever feel it the way you do. That's why you can't afford to wait for someone to understand it. You don't need understanding. You need execution. The lone wolf walks not because he wants to be isolated, but because he refuses to be delayed. Every moment wasted trying to explain your dream is a moment you could have used building it. Every conversation spent convincing others is energy taken away from creation. Eventually, you learn the silence of solitude is more valuable than the noise of small talk. There's power in not being available, power in pulling away from the crowd and diving into yourself, because that's where discipline is built. That's where confidence is created. When you choose to stay in and build while others are out blending in. When you decide to become obsessed with progress instead of attention. You don't rise by being seen. You rise by becoming undeniable. And you don't become undeniable by doing what everyone else is doing. You do it by outlasting, outworking, outgrowing. Not for the world to clap for you, but so that when the time comes, you won't need their claps. You'll already know what you are. Discipline becomes your language. Consistency becomes your identity. And freedom becomes your reward. Because the truth is, the more time you spend alone with your purpose, the less you need from the world. You don't need motivation. You become it. You don't need inspiration. You live it. While others depend on reminders to keep moving, you move because there's no other option. You've tied your identity to growth, to mastery. You've made pain your compass and silence your strategy. Every rep, every early morning, every late night. They're all bricks in the foundation of the person you're building. Most people stop because they don't see quick results. But the lone wolf isn't looking for quick. He's looking for forever. He knows that long-term greatness requires short-term sacrifice. That real growth is uncomfortable.
Boring.
Repetitive. That mastery isn't glamorous, it's gritty. And he's ready for that. Because he understands something most never will. There's a difference between moving fast and moving with purpose. You don't need to sprint when every step is intentional. You don't need to rush when every hour is focused. And you don't need to prove anything when the results speak louder than words ever could. Every hour alone with your craft sharpens your edge. Every quiet decision to stay disciplined carves away the weak parts. Every day you choose growth over comfort. You step further away from who you were and closer to who you're meant to become. That's the reward, not the fame, not the recognition, but the inner shift, the unshakable confidence that comes from knowing you did the work alone, without shortcuts, without applause, and now no one can take that from you, because it's not borrowed, it's earned. You become your own source of power, your own standard, your own fuel. You stop needing others to keep you accountable because you've already decided this isn't a phase, this is who you are. And the deeper you go into that identity, the less room there is for excuses, for fear, for mediocrity. You don't fear being alone, you respect it. Because it's in that space that you gained everything. Focus, strength, direction. And now, while others panic in silence, you thrive in it. While they seek distraction, you seek discipline. While they chase followers, you chase legacy. And that legacy, it's being built now. Every time you say no to comfort, every time you choose the harder road, every time you rise when no one's watching. That's what separates the lone wolf from the rest. Not talent, not luck, but the decision to show up anyway. To lead himself. To choose purpose over popularity. To go farther even if it means going alone. Because at the end of the day, greatness isn't handed out. It's earned one quiet, disciplined step at a time. When you learn to move without needing company, you begin to realize how rare that strength is. Most people need a crowd. They need confirmation, validation, distraction. They crumble in silence. But the ones who rise in silence, those are the ones who rewrite their future. Because they're not fueled by noise, they're driven by vision. And when you have a vision, You don't just see where you're going, you feel it in your bones. It's not a wish. It's not a maybe. It's a direction, a command. And once it takes hold, nothing can stop it. Not doubt, not failure, not fear. Because that vision becomes the reason. The reason you stay disciplined. The reason you endure. The reason you keep going when everything else tells you to stop. Discipline isn't about motivation. It's about remembering what you said you would do long after the mood you set it in is gone. The lone wolf doesn't rely on fleeting inspiration. He creates structure, ritual, unbreakable habits that don't care how he feels. Because emotions are temporary. Standards are not. The truth is, most people won't understand the way you move. They won't understand why you say no so often.
Why you disappear from the noise.
Why your circle gets smaller and your goals get bigger. But that's not your concern. Your life isn't meant to be explained. It's meant to be executed. While they chase comfort, you're chasing capacity. How far can I go? How deep can I focus? How sharp can I get? That's your language now. You're not here to live average. You're here to stretch your limits, to see what happens when you stop making excuses and start making decisions. And the biggest decision you'll ever make is this: are you willing to outlast the resistance? Not just beat it once, not just feel strong for a week, but endure. Stay committed. Keep sharpening your mind and your craft long after the excitement is gone. That's what builds the elite. Not talent, not hype. Just relentless consistency in the shadows. That's where the lone wolf thrives, in the shadows. Not because he's hiding, but because he's building. He's studying, refining, evolving. Quietly becoming something so strong, so solid, that when he finally steps into the light, nothing can shake him. Nothing can stop him. The difference is always in the unseen hours. What you do when no one's clapping, when no one's watching, when quitting would be easier, more comfortable, more popular. But you stay locked in, focused, grounded. Because you didn't come this far just to prove them wrong. You came to prove yourself right. You've seen what distraction does. You've seen what comfort leads to. You've seen what happens when you try to please the world and neglect yourself. So now you move different. You think long term. You act with intention. And you build a version of yourself that doesn't need to be rescued because he rescues himself. That kind of strength can't be faked. It has to be earned. And it's earned through resistance, through lonely nights, through hard choices, through every time you get knocked down and decide to rise without waiting for a hand. Every time you rise alone, you increase your threshold. You build more than just muscle or skill, you build grit. That inner resilience that doesn't fade under pressure. That quiet, steady fire that keeps burning even when the world forgets your name. The world will always favor comfort. That's why so few become great. Because greatness demands more than most are willing to give. It asks for your attention, your time, your discipline. It will isolate you, test you, break you, and then rebuild you into something rare.